Hi, I'm Josh Davy, Livestock and Range Advisor in Tama, Glenn, and Colusa counties, and Cooperative Extension Director in Tehama County. I want to thank Western Sarah and the University of California for putting together these trainings, as well as Jeff Stackhouse and Lania Quinn Dave, who have taken the lead on putting these prescribed fire and weed control presentations together. This presentation covers Medusahead control using fire. Medusahead's a winter annual, meaning that it germinates in the fall, and most seeds do germinate in the fall with this plant, and in most cases, most of the seed bank germinates within that single year. The plant matures in late spring, often several weeks after most other plants have, and produces seed for the following year, which terms it as an annual plant. As you can see from the awns on this, the name Medusahead is actually quite apparent with the wavy awns that the plant has resembling Medusa's head, and also discouraging livestock and wildlife from consuming the plant as it's trying to make seed. Another advantage that this plant has, which actually is one of its downfalls in terms of being a productive forage for livestock or wildlife, is a high silica content. Silica is actually the same property of rice straw that keeps it from breaking down as much. In terms of digestibility, silica is very low in digestibility, but has the ability to fill up the animal. They're full with a low nutritious plant and not as productive as they otherwise could have been. But the reason that Medusahead also has this high silica content is it gives it its competitive advantage to form the thatch that you see in this photo that covers up other desirable plants. Medusahead is able to germinate in this thatch while other plants are not. You'll notice that a lot of times going through the season where this thatch will last much longer into a rainy season as compared to sites that don't have this high level of thatch. So this plant's competitive ability is to mature late, cover other forages, whether native wildflowers or other perennial grasses or annual grasses that may be more desirable. It covers them in this thatch late in the season, and then that thatch doesn't break down. Jeremy James, University of California specialist in rangeland management, did research that showed, actually documented the grazing reduction Medusahead causes. And what his research showed was that a single 10% increase in this Medusahead population resulted in a 30-pound per acre decrease in weight gain on yearlings. So a significant factor for livestock producers on rangelands. And this is evident in this photo here, which was taken right as the plant was maturing, where you see patches where it's grazed, but in most cases the Medusahead was just pushed through and not consumed. In terms of the thatch that Medusahead creates, it's actually well adapted to germinate within the thatch. Unlike most plants, Medusahead has a curious adaptation to thatch. When a root grows out of a seed, it's called a radicle. That radicle that's laying on the soil surface reaches down and tries to incorporate itself into the soil. If it's unable to incorporate itself into the soil, generally that seed dies and the plant fails. In the case of Medusahead, it'll shoot out a radicle like most other plants, but if that one fails, it'll actually shoot out a second one, therefore giving it a second chance as compared to most plants. In general, Medusahead is found on many soil types, but it tends to prefer more clayey soils as compared to shallow soils that have more sandy characteristics. This is likely due because of the plant's late maturity, which gives it its competitive advantage. So clay soils that hold more moisture are preferable for Medusahead. That way it can carry out its method of competition. The seeds for it, as you can see the awns in this plant actively maturing, each of these awns comes out with a single seed on them, seen on the back of this yearling steer here. That's a transport mechanism. Those awns stick on livestock, wildlife, and vehicles, including ATVs and pickups, allowing the plant to spread far distances, which is why we see it so widespread all over California. So fire on controlling Medusahead. Fire is a very valuable tool. This is a controlled burn in Tehama County several years ago targeting Medusahead. The biggest thing to consider in burning for Medusahead, which can work really well, is two factors. One, it needs to be late enough in the season that most plants have dried so the fire can carry, which is obvious. You can't burn wet grass. But at the same time, it can't be done so late that the seeds have actually dropped from the seed head. The timing is critical in that seeds laying on the soil surface are actually not affected largely by fire. However, when seeds are still on the plant, about 7 seconds of standard heat experienced from a prescribed fire has been shown to induce over 90% of seed kill. Northern Central Valley, California, this timing is generally around June, and much later than that, seeds actually begin to start dropping, and the effectiveness of fire will be negated. Timings in the fall would not be seen as optimal timings for having much control of Medusahead because most of that seed would have shattered already. The advantage with a single burn over several other weed species is that Medusahead seeds primarily germinate in the fall. Nearly all of the seed bank germinates at that time. What that means is that practices that do a single control of the seed production and eliminate those plants can drastically reduce future numbers. You're not dealing with a plant in this case that has a huge seed bank like many others where follow-up control measures are necessary just to see reductions in the population. This is evident in one of the trials that I completed several years ago, where if you look at pre-burn levels in 2011, both the unburned control and the control site had in excess of 60% Medusahead cover. In 2011, after the monitoring was completed on this project, the site was burned at the optimal timing in June, and you see now in 2012, a year after the burn, Medusahead levels in the burn area are not different than zero. Control was phenomenal as compared to the unburned area where levels were seen to be closer to 70% cover of Medusahead. So drastic reductions in Medusahead can be achieved by burning. But the other thing to note is going into the future, Medusahead levels can creep back up due to reinvasion. In this case, there was a drought that actually dropped Medusahead levels in the area that was not burned, and after several years, the two sites actually looked fairly similar. But what it leads to is follow-up control measures actually don't look at control, but at prevention of reinvading seeds. And one of the best methods to be able to prevent it is competition, or essentially plant what you want to prevent what you don't. Revegetation offers several options. One popular option is the use of perennial grasses. In this case, some common introduced perennial grasses are fletch fescue, hardy grasses, including perla grass and Berber orchard grass. These are all summer dormant varieties of grasses that are winter active and highly adapted to much of California, over 15 inches of rainfall. Selection of varieties is very important depending on the site. For instance, you're not going to want to plant hardy grass in areas with shallow soils. It would need deeper soils as compared to Berber orchard grass, which may be able to handle shallower soils. If perennial grasses are not the option that you want to go, there is a variety of annual grasses and as well as forbs and clovers that can be planted. And these can be done fairly economically, including annual ryegrass and soft chest. One of the things to consider, and if long-term control of Medusahead and reinvasion is desired, is the look of the perennial grasses. But when considering this as an option, establishment is fairly involved. There's a certain amount of steps that are required, and skipping one of these steps will likely lead to a total failure. Failures are possible enough due to a lack of rainfall that skipping steps in terms of allowing weed invasion can negate the entire project. So in order for perennial grass seeding to be successful, weeds need to be controlled the year before planting. In this case, the burn suffices for that. The burn will take out grass competition that the perennials would face in the year of establishment. The fall after a spring burn, the planting area would wait for a germination and then have a herbicide application of glyphosate applied to completely eliminate all germinated plants. At that time, the perennial would be seeded, followed by an application of 2,4-D or other broadleaf weed control in the spring, and grazing would be deferred for a year and a half to allow the plant to establish. So although this is a long-term control method, it's also a method that requires substantial capital investment as well as labor. The seeding of annuals offers shorter-term control, likely 2 to 3 years, or persistence, I guess you could say, with the advantage of still being a superior quality grass over the weedy grasses that were controlled, and much easier in terms of seeding and success rate. Seedings of ryegrass and soft chest are very rarely unsuccessful, and they can consist as being as easy as flying on the seed just prior to a rainfall event, or flying the seed on, drilling the seed, and then covering it with light harrowing or even cultipacking. The disadvantage is the short-term nature of these seedings are likely only going to last in terms of the grass component for several years. Medusahead, through the use of controlled fire, can show very good results, often over 90% control with just a single burn. If options are considered to manage the possibilities of reinvasion, this can be an excellent long-term control method with very little cost. Thank you for your time, and we hope that we've provided you a little more information on the timing for controlling Medusahead, with the remembrance being on that spring timing before seeds have shattered, but yet dry enough that a fire can actually be carried through the entire area to provide the ample heat to prevent the seeds from actually becoming viable. If you have any questions, please feel free to give me a call at the number or email me with the information there. You can also contact Jeff Stackhouse or Lania Quinn Davidson for more information. Thank you.